Army Exiles. I can't. Can't, guys. It's just been a 7.5 hour stream. We had just the craziest league announcement. People overhype things, but this was 30,000 lines of patch notes, and they added a full city builder mechanic, tons of quality of life, everything. This is a gigantic, gigantic patch. Will it be really good? Who knows? After Necropolis, we're always excited during the announcements, and Necropolis ended up how it is. But with the quality of life, with the feedback that Mark said, you can tell he's a player of the game. You can tell he's very earnest and he wants to make the best game that he can. And I don't know. I'm starting with like a somber thing. I think we had an 8-hour stream nearly, and it was so long. Anyway, all right, exciting YouTube intro. Top 10 things that I thought were the most interesting stuff from the patch notes. We're going to keep this short and sweet. I'll do a bigger deep dive later. I'll link to you guys the VOD of the full stream below if you want to watch me read through the entire thing for 3 hours, 4 hours. But yeah, just going to go over the top 10 things I thought were interesting. I'm very excited for this patch. And there's a good chance that this brings a lot of people back to the game. All right, let's get right into it. Just to give you guys a little context here, I'm just going to hold page down and you can see how long the patch notes are. That took about 4 hours to read through. It is crazy, crazy, crazy. So the top 10 things that I thought were the most interesting, that affected me the most. Oh, also, I will just say point number 0. A lot of people asking, is Bane good now? No. It got 20% damage buff, the way that I talk about Bane right now. And so what a lot of you guys might be asking right now, or just chaos dot in general. Probably playable, maybe at high investment. It might be fun to play. But I think for a league starter especially, 20% more damage. That's what it is. 20.1% exactly more damage on the build. That's not enough to make it viable, I think, for a league starter. It's just, it's not enough. So first thing is the league mechanic is a crazy like Anno 1800 civilization, Settlers of Catan thing. Pretty wild. You basically build a new town. You set it all up with workers and everything. There's interesting like mobile game mechanics that are going on as well. So you can kind of queue up things. You can queue up a ship to go away and come back with loot a couple hours later, like a mobile game. You can also automatically run maps. You can queue up like 15, 20 maps. And then the workers that you have hired through the gold, there's gold in the game now that drops from every monster. The gold that you get, it auto picks up, will then be used to hire workers, and they will automatically run maps for you, and they will simulate as if they were running the map, not fully accurately, and bring back loot. It's pretty wild. My concerns with it right now is of all, like the real-time mobile game mechanic. There are concerns with FOMO, like, oh man, I gotta take the dog out for a walk, but in 10 minutes, my ship's gonna return and I don't wanna miss it. And I wanna be as efficient as possible. Definitely has like some weird mechanics there, but Mark did say that you can adjust the timers so you can kind of fit your schedule with that. So we'll see how that plays out. It's potentially a very complex mechanic. There's also an in-map mechanic. I think he said there's 4 or 5 different encounters that are a little bit different, where you basically kill monsters in a circle, but there's different kinds of monsters, different types of encounters that will give you the resources for doing the shipbuilding or the hiring the ships and the all the stuff there. There is Geed gambling that you can do if you know from Diablo 2. Basically just gambling, very similar to the Gambler in Last Epoch, if you know that as well, for a more recent game. They also brought back recombinating in a much smaller regard, where you can use the resources that you get from the Settlers of Kelgur mechanic to do some recombinating with Isla. So that's pretty cool. And then really big thing is there's some insane enchants. Jung Roan took a screenshot right here and he tweeted it. You can enchant specifically things from uniques that are in the game. So, they pulled over Headhunter, right? You can put this probably on a belt. This is from Replica Headhunter. Mark did say it has to go on the same weapon type or same item type. So, the Headhunter mod will have to go on a belt. Projectiles returned to you will have to go on a ring because that's from Nimbus, etc. But yeah, pretty crazy things. It uses these rune resources that you get from, I think primarily from killing either the bosses or doing the ship mechanic. And he said there's very rare. So I anticipate each one of these costing multiple divines, potentially very, very expensive. Potentially really cool mechanic. The in-map mechanic is very simple. Just kill monsters in circle, get resource. The question is, how annoying is it to deal with the ships going out and returning, setting all that up? It does have new boss fights. Are those boss fights good? Are the new, loot mechanics good? You never know with the league until they play it, and then they're usually tuned, and as we know, they're usually tuned, overtuned or undertuned, and they have to patch it. But really interesting. The highlight of the patch, I would say by far, is the huge melee rework. So big things with melee rework is totems removed. Banners are now basically melee only. War cries are kind of basically melee only as well. There's more application than that, but with quality is now 20 to 30% more instead of increased. If we go to the patch notes, almost every gem in the game, I would say a vast majority of them almost, got a little bit of a change where the effectiveness of it now scales on gem level, both attacks and spells. Spells always had at least flat damage scaling, basically like a 10 to 15% more damage per level after level 20. And now it looks like everything, even attacks, is now going to scale based off of its effectiveness of added damage, potentially past 20. If this is how it works, everything now attacks, right? Previously, you didn't really care about gem levels as much on attacks. And now even that you can kind of scale, and you'll see these numbers are huge. Flicker Strike fanatics, rejoice. You can see the previous number here, 142%, or sorry, at level 20, 210% effectiveness up to 408, nearly double effectiveness of added damage on Flicker Strike right there. On top of that is the base damage with the quality is now a more multiplier instead of an increase. Commensurate with that, they did change some things. They did scale some things back, like the removal of totems. But this is just so your base damage, your average damage without totems is just going to be much, much better. So this could feel very good. It could make a lot of melee skills much more viable, but this is the very big thing. There's so many, I'm not going to go into all the detail. We still got to work this out. I am not the master of melee whatsoever. So, someone like Karn probably just is going crazy right now. But potential. I'm definitely personally looking at a melee league start for myself. So, is it going to be good? I don't know, but I kind of just want to YOLO it anyway because I think it's really exciting to have the potential for melee being really good. And I have a whole list. We're keeping a list of them. Maybe I'll show it on stream, or I'll show it, a video later this week. Crazy builds that I'm kind of thinking about right now. We're just writing a whole list down. This is the highlight for sure. We've been asking for melee for years, and they definitely wanted to rework it. So also, huge thing, poor Empy and all of his friends, and also poor me. I was actually originally planning and have been practicing with a group to do group play. I wanted to jump off the deep end there, do group play, make a ton of money. I wanted to get, go hard the first week and start printing mirrors and get really, really rich. That was my plan this league. And it was going to be a very big difference and change in my content. And they just threw a whole wrench in that plan. So MF got totally wrecked. The group is really, really despondent right now. Some people said they're not even sure they're going to play this league now because they were so hell-bent. They've been working really, really hard, like organizing full spreadsheets, planning out the group play, and that was what they want. That's why they wanted to play. And so what happened is MF item quantity, like there's MF is basically Magic Find is two different variables, two scalars, item quantity and item rarity. Right now we have I might get this wrong. Definitely check out Snap's channel, SnapOW. He's like the master of this stuff. But there's item quantity, item rarity, and specifically quantity. It's like the party multiplier times the player multiplier times the area multiplier, and there might be some other stuff in there as well. And I could get that wrong, but something like that. And they removed the entire player multiplier. All quant on gear is gone, all of it. Period. So if we look at, for example, gold worms, right? Or gold worms right here. They no longer have 20% quant, and now they have 40% rarity. Rarity is okay, right? If you want to farm uniques, but the big thing that made uniques easier to farm, you cared about quantity so much, particularly if you're just doing big group farming, because you want to get all of those div cards and all of that. And that multiplier on top of the rarity, like you need so much rarity to get that much value out of it. Whereas just having 50% player quant with all the other multipliers, or up to 100% player quant, that makes a very, very big difference. That's the most meaningful multiplier. And that being entirely gone is huge. You can see all of these. They removed all item quant whatsoever and mostly replaced it with rarity. So yeah, huge change. Group play is pretty crazy, probably gone. They also, Mark said that There were fewer than 100 players that had totally warped the economy. They were dropping something like 90% plus of all uniques in the game were dropped by fewer than 100 players. And he was like, that's a problem. Apparently, hundreds of thousands of uniques were being dropped by single players in those T17 maps last league. Obviously causing server issues as well. And they did a full rework of Magic Find. It is done. Palstron, you did it. I don't want to throw his name under the bus there, but for the Magic Find lovers, but he's the one that in our podcast, he was really adamant about Magic Find. So huge, particularly for, if you're a solo player. I don't think I have this on here yet. Yeah, I think I missed it. So kind of to go with MF getting reworked and the economy and everything, we can't miss this, is there is now an auction house. He didn't call it auction house. There's an auction house now effectively for stackable items. Anything that doesn't have unique rolls on it, even maps which have unique rolls, right? That doesn't apply. Anything that is a stackable item, scarabs, unique Uber fragments, anything like that, currency that is the biggest one, can now be traded on an auction house where you set a buyout, you just set your price and all that. And yeah, I don't know if it trades when you're offline. I'm not sure about that, but yeah, I mean, just leave your client open. Who closes Path of Exile anyway? We don't go outside. MF being gone and auction house, the casual trader, the casual softcore trade player, I think you're looking to be in a really, really good place this league. And then number 4, defense moderate rework. Fizz taken as is basically impossible to cap now. They removed many, many sources of it. Corruptions on shields. They removed the Gravicius craft, removed the Corel craft, etc. They removed it entirely from Taste of Hate. Taste of Hate is in a pretty rough place unless you wanted it for the Fizz as extra. You basically can't get 100% Fizz taken as. It still exists for Lightning Coil, Cloak of Flame. I feel like those feel particularly extra mandatory now. We'll see how it all shakes out. But if you're playing a regular little witch build or something and you want to get that physical damage mitigation, Coil or Cloak feels very, very mandatory now because it doesn't look like they gave us any other sources of physical damage mitigation. And generally, right, you don't want to go into a big armor setup unless you're going left side with block on like a Necromancer. That happens. Aegis Aurora Necromancer, that's a common build. But yeah, if you want to be like a right side Chaos Witch or anything like that, it can be really tough to get that physical damage mitigation. And they removed many sources of it. And just what do you do? Like, even if you have like double the size of an energy shield pool, that's still less than 75% less physical damage taken. Really big changes to the defense there. Other thing is sources of physical overwhelm are now gone. They changed it to, they reworked it all. So the big rework here is instead of giving monsters overwhelm, now just grants them physical damage reduction. So yeah, a very, very big change on and this is for a lot of different monsters. So if overwhelm being gone, now your armor is generally more reliable and you don't have to worry about, hey, sometimes my armor just doesn't work. And I think that's really big for just general armor-based characters. So that's pretty awesome. But like I said, I think Coil and Cloak, at least from what I've seen in the patch notes, who knows, maybe there's new common uniques, maybe there's other modifiers. Oh yeah, and then also on body armors and everything, the values can be higher. There's new base types that are higher values. There's like T0 base types, basically, like higher than Vol Regalias and all those guys. Maybe those numbers are big enough. I haven't done the math on it yet. I think they are in the patch notes, but right now it feels like if you're going to play a witch, particularly that wants to go right side, physical damage mitigation might be a little dicey at the moment. Also, speaking of witches that go right side, Divine Blessing was straight up removed from the game. Very, very common thing. Currently in the game, you use Divine Blessing to spend your energy shield to give yourself a temporary aura, or you use it in combination with Eldritch Battery, which just gives you a gigantic pool. You can reserve all your mana. You still have energy shield for your mana. You can use Divine Blessing to spend that, get an additional aura, and you effectively get a free aura that's just temporary and you have to recast it periodically. And just removing that entirely from the game, lots of builds that were just doing EB and using that are just missing an entire aura now. And that's going to be very interesting in seeing how that affects a lot of builds. I have to look at Frostblink, for example, and hey, maybe it just loses an entire aura. It's going to lose 30% damage by just losing Malevolence, right? 30% plus damage. That is pretty wild. And yeah, I'm going to be looking really closely at non-spellcaster builds, non-traditional spellcaster builds for my own builds in the future, at least this league. We'll see how it shakes out, how people kind of rework things. But number 6, I already talked about this, but yeah, right side defenses for the witch. Block is getting a lot of nodes on the new reworked passive tree. So you can go to pewplanner.com. It is fully updated. If we go to the regular planner and we type in block, for example, there are a lot of new block nodes. Oh, also they added a whole cluster here. I think this is worth calling out. So nomadic teachings right here, you can get an additional 3 all max res right here. So you can get 3 right here and 3 right here for 81 max res on a Marauder pretty easily from your start, which is pretty compelling and interesting. And not to mention, if you're a Templar, that goes down a little bit too. Templar has more access to max res, which I think is pretty awesome, particularly for an Inquisitor. Getting some additional max res there without having to path all the way down here is really good quality of life. We got a good, nice little segue. Speaking of block, Gladiator did get reworked and is a little bit different now. So Gladiator, I'm not going to go over the whole thing. This is, I think, the most interesting node that they gave him, where depending on the base type of the weapon that he's using, and if you're dual wielding, you can have 2 different ones. You can get both these bonuses. These are more multipliers. The most interesting one to me here is the 20% of leeches instant while wielding a claw. That on top of the mastery, which I think is another 10%, you can get 30% instant leech while wielding a claw. And that's without using the new Vol Pact. So if you're interested in Vol Pact, old Vol Pact is back, and you get full 100% melee damage, instant life leech. And even if you're not a gladiator, that's pretty darn good. If you're playing a gladiator, I think that's the most interesting node to me, is weird stuff with the base types, but also you get an inherent really good block from Determined Survivor and lucky block right here. So this is pretty interesting. You can get lucky block, which rolls twice. This is really, really good since block is traditionally capped at 75%, but lucky block on top of that, I think it gives you, like, mathematically, it's like 93, 94% chance to block because it rolls twice. It's like add advantage in Dungeons and Dragons. So pretty compelling right here. I think, yeah, there's an aggravated thing where bleeding monsters count as if they're moving, so you get the bonus damage for moving monsters. Then they removed counterattacks with retaliation. Sorry, I'm going into more detail than I was planning. It's pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. But for me, what I am the most excited about is Warden. She gets tinctures. I'm not going to go into detail about that, but tinctures, she can use tinctures on ranged weapons. By default, they're only melee. This is a lot of investment for tinctures. I don't know how strong they are. Right here, these don't look crazy to me. They look good, but not insane. Maybe there's better ones. I'm not sure. She gets bark skin. I think the lesson of the seasons after the bark skin has potential for making you pretty tanky. But the most interesting thing to me, but the most interesting thing about the Warden. Oh, yeah. Raider's gone. Sorry. Raider's gone. It is now the Warden. Long live the Warden. The best thing to me here is Oath of Winter. Enemies that you freeze are frozen for at least 2 seconds minimum. And you can inflict Hoarfrost on them. It's an additional debuff. When they're basically in the refractory period for a freeze, you'll be inflicting the Hoarfrost, and then when you do freeze them, the next freeze on them will be much longer, and we could see pretty long duration freezes, which I think is pretty wild. The other thing is, if you have freeze proliferation, really big shatters, I think this will be one of the most satisfying and fun to use nodes in the game. I'm very, very excited about this. I am personally very excited to probably league start Warden right now, unless, I got a lot of stuff cooking right now, but I'm excited to league start Warden. I think it's going to be really, really fun. Oath of Summer, you can have 2 scorches on an enemy. Potentially, that's minus 60 max res on a monster. Way, way better. Just like I called, that's exactly what I asked for. If you watched my video a couple days ago, I really, really wanted them to rework Avatar the Veil, like minus 20 res. Blech, when you apply an exposure. Like, that's so boring. Oh, minus 20 exposure. Who cares? But being able to do minus 60 with Scorch on top of an exposure, which is, get 10 or 15% on an exposure, that's pretty darn good. And then this one, Oath of Spring, people are saying, hey, maybe this works with the Taming, which gets more damage per shock and ignite and all that. I don't think this is going to work with the Taming. I think the Taming's just going to count 1 shock. I don't think it's going to... If it works with the Taming, this is going to be one of the most mandatory, insane things in the game. It's just that means 1,000% more damage, right? Or 1,000% increased damage. However, what this means is on an enemy, as long as you can hit someone enough, you have to hit them often enough. If you can get up to 50 shocks, that is 100% increased damage taken, which is pretty wild. That is gigantic. I'm very excited about Warden. That's what I'm looking at personally the most. Let's see. Detonate Dead in general, they did remove a lot of stuff. I'm not going to go into all the detail. They removed a lot of stuff about the way that Unearth and Desecrate work with corpses. Cock DD might still be viable. It's everyone's favorite build from last league. It's, it was the strongest league starter for sure. Still viable probably, but I think it's weaker. I don't know. I don't know enough about all of the consequences with all the corpse stuff. Maybe it doesn't work. I'm not 100% sure. There was a line that I thought that said Desecrate does not work any longer with corpse skills. So that might not work, but maybe an unearth angle, I'm not sure. Or corpse walker or something like that. Currency trading market, I guess I said that earlier, but yeah, it's right here. Currency trading market, not an auction house. This thing is insane. Talked about it earlier. And then the last thing that I thought was the most interesting is Affliction, Calandra, and Sentinel are all back in their own tiny little small ways. You can randomly see the Wildwood, so you can get some wisps. You can randomly see a Calandra mirror thing that you can pull out. It actually itemizes, and you can pull out the ability to reflect some jewelry. If you don't know about the reflection, you could probably look up a YouTube video, but basically it can really boost the value of modifiers on jewelry, and it can even invert something, so you could have like -70 lightning res on a ring, which if you're a Doriani's prototype build, you really like. And then Sentinels will randomly show up as well. You'll just find like one Sentinel at a time, and then you can press a button and activate it just to get the increased quant and rarity. So it'll be a fun little thing. I don't think the Sentinel thing specifically is going to be like giga broken, but you probably are happy when you see it. You can just juice it up and just get some more drops. Also, Affliction Specters are back, so I think there's going to be a lot of compelling things to look at there. I would definitely pay very close attention to any build that you're playing, whether you can add Specters into it. And we saw this a lot in Affliction League, where even Tornado Shot builds were grabbing some of the Specters for like a really big Hatred and all that. Oh yeah, Hatred got nerfed. It's no longer 2 different multipliers. It's just more cold damage. Or it's just more Fizz is cold. No longer more cold damage. So, regular Frostbolt builds or whatever don't want to run Hatred anymore because it's only Fizz is extra. I think this is going to be a crazy league. These are my top 10 things, I guess 11 things that I thought were most interesting, that affect me the most. For yourself personally, yeah, you guys thinking of playing anything jumping out to you? One thing that I was saying on stream is, people kept saying, coming in chat and being like, hey, what are your top 5 builds? What are your top 10 builds? What are you thinking? This is a thing that you won't hear very much from people that make builds and share them for, share them on YouTube for a living. But I would really love to see you guys just go out there. I think this is a spectacular league to go out there on your own, particularly if you've played the game for a number of leagues now, and just kind of YOLO it. We always really focus on having to play super efficiently. People get so worked up that a build doesn't do exactly what they want it to be. They blame other people. Sometimes they blame themselves, and they're frustrated. And I think one of the most beautiful things about playing a new game, and this is such a big rework to a lot of things. I think if you just come at it with fresh eyes and just be like, hey, I got a crazy idea. I'm going to play Warden with double tinctures, charge dash, cast on crit, Voltaxic burst. Who knows? Is it going to be good? I don't know. But just YOLO it. And I think with all of the ship mechanics and the Settlers of Catan thing and all the fun stuff, I don't know. I more and more, I think it's very valuable to not over fixate on just getting giga rich and playing hyper efficient, and just play it like a video game and just have a good time. And that's what my plan is. I'm definitely going to share with you guys my thoughts and builds that I think might be pretty good, but I'm always going to encourage you guys to just go out there and play the game as a game and just have a good time. So yeah, that's me. It's 1:30 a.m. I gotta edit this video down. I just wanted to get you guys out my initial thoughts before I go to bed. And for all the people that are waking up right now in Germany and all over the world, and you're excited to see what this patch is about. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to see you on stream, particularly on League Start next week, and we explore and sail the high seas. All right, our mateys, goodbye.